Ciao ragazzi, sono la vostra prof. Oggi parliamo del condizionale, the conditional. That's when you need a condition for something to happen. So if I were rich, I would buy a house by the sea. So I would. So in English you say I would love, I would like, I would buy. So you use two verbs, would plus the verb. Instead, in Italian, all you need is to properly conjugate the verb, and the word would is taken care of inside of the verb itself. So the ending is what gives you the meaning of would. So we have the conditional present and the conditional past. So I would eat or I would have eaten. So you have it too. So let's see how you conjugate this. These end up being fairly long verbs. So isk is not an issue. That's why I put the x there. So all you do is remove the e in all three of the conjugations, first, second, and third. With the one difference being that your a in the adverbs becomes e. This root change and the way you treat the root is identical to the future tense, which is great because you get to only learn it once, but it could also be a problem sometimes because you might tend to confuse them. So you need to be very certain that you know the endings. So let's pick the harder one. So lavorare, lavorerei, lavoreresti, lavorerebbe, lavoreremmo, lavorereste, lavorerebbero. For example, lavorerei, lavoreresti, lavorerebbe, lavoreremmo, lavorereste, lavorerebbero. Scriverei, scriveresti, scriverei. So this is your root. So, scriverei, scriveresti, scriverebbe, scriveremmo, scrivereste, scriverebbero. I picked finire because it's an isk verb to show you how the isk, it's really not an issue as far as ire verbs are concerned. So, here you have it. Finirei, finiresti, finirebbe, finiremmo, finireste, and finirebbero. So, I would work, you would work, she would work, or he. We would work, y'all would work, they would work. This is your regular present tense. So far that wasn't too bad. One of the tricky things about the conditional is a very long list of irregulars. You have a chart and it looks like this, but what I've decided to do, you have this in class, I will also give you one page each to help you memorize. And I have some mnemonic devices which I hope work. So this is your first category that I call the sad cap, VV. So, sad, cap, VV. These are sad because they send away a vowel. Okay, so the hard part is remembering which ones belong to the list. So we have sapere, to know, andare, to go, dovere, to have to, cadere, to fall, avere, to have, potere, to be able to, vedere, to see, vivere, to live. So here it's what happens. The root work is going to be you get rid of all the e's as usual, and then for all of them except for mandare, you also eliminate the e in between. So you would have avrei, vedrei, andrei, andrei. Okay, so I picked as a sample andare. Andrei, andresti, andrebbe, andremmo, andreste, andrebbero. So this is your sad, cap, VV category. Sad, cap, VV. And they're sad because they take away these vowels. But in a way, they sound better that way because it means that they're faster. And these are verbs that we use a lot, so maybe that's how that happened. This is another category. This is your double R category. RR. Here we go. What happens to these? These instead eliminate a lot of information. So your root work is going to look like this. Vo, be, te, be. So far, you've only kept the first two letters. This is the one exception. And you take that away. Now, you have very short verbs left. So to compensate for that, we add a double R, and then we add the endings. So, for example, I picked volere, vorrei, I would want, vorresti, vorrebbe, vorremmo, vorreste, vorrebbero. I pointed this out, and I should have done it earlier too. Pay attention to this MMO ending because the future tense, it's exactly the same but with one less M. So by omitting an M, you change the verb tense entirely, so we need to pay extra attention. So the verbs are volere, to want to, bere, to drink, tenere, to keep, rimanere, to stay, venire, to come. So this is my double R category. Oops. Just does it like that each time. Okay, so your third one is not really a category. It's the verb to be. The verb to be is always very tricky, and it's essere, essere. And it goes like this. Sarei, saresti, sarebbe, saremmo, sareste, sarebbero. But then we have three common verbs that are are verbs. If they follow the rule, this A will become an E. But they're so close to the verb to be and they get used all the time, so they picked up the same rhythm. So this will be starei, staresti, starebbe, staremmo, sareste, starebbero. Farei, faresti, farebbe, faremmo, fareste, farebbero. Darei, daresti, darebbe, daremmo, dareste, darebbero. This is another category. This is really not irregular. It's always the same for all the verbs that are like this. So the first one is where you remove the I. So when you have giare, so C-I-A-R-E, and giare, G-I-A-R-E verbs, when you conjugate, first, second, third, singular and plural, you eliminate the I. Then we have verbs with H that you have to add. So these are care and gare, have tough sound. These also add an H, second singular and first plural of the present tense. But because all of the endings here have an E, it applies to all of them. So giocherei, giocheresti, giocherebbe, giocheremmo, giochereste, giocherebbero. Pay attention that this is care and gare. Okay? Has to be the combo, these four letters. Care and gare, add an H right here. Ciare and giare, you don't need to add the I. These are the irregulars and special verbs for the conditional present. There are four verbs, volere, potere, dovere, and piacere, that when we translate the meaning in English, it might be confusing how you actually use the verb in English or vice versa. So volere, volere means to want, potere, to be able to, dovere, to have to, and piacere, to like. So volere will be our first one. So volere is to want. At the conditional, I would want. So more politely, I would like. I would like, plus infinitive. or I would want, which is not the best way of saying it. It's just more literal. That's one thing about the conditional. The conditional in Italian and English is sometimes used just to make a request softer. So instead of saying I want to eat, you say I would like to eat. So use a conditional. Or like you say, oh, could you please bring me that book? So we have the same use of the conditional, and you see it very nicely in this verb. So the whole I only put the first one to get you started. Vorrei, vorresti, vorrebbe, vorremmo, vorreste, vorrebbero. Plus infinitive. So io vorrei mangiare la pizza adesso. You're going to notice that this verb here does the same thing. I would like. Usually you only have the third singular and third plural option, and it depends, that choice depends on what follows. As you know, these are the rules that have to do with piacere, and that too means I would like. Quindi mi piacerebbe la pizza, mi piacerebbero gli spaghetti. In general, piacere is a harder verb to use. It is more polite to use piacere. You know, if you would like something, it is nicer, but use it only if you feel really ready. So that would mean that you need a plus the person plus piacere conjugated depending on what follows. At the conditional would make it really polite. Quindi a Maria piacerebbe mangiare la pizza. So as you see, these two are the same, have the same meaning. So here you guys say, oh, wait a minute, I would. That's the conditional. Don't forget, this is I would like. I would like is volere. At the conditional. Potere, to be able to. So at the conditional, it becomes I could. So, oh, I can ride my bike today. Or you could say more politely, I could ride my bike today. Same thing. That comes from potere. You have the power to do something. The starter is io potrei. Io potrei, tu potresti, lui potrebbe, noi potremmo, voi potreste, loro potrebbero. Plus infinitive, as is the rule for volere, potere, dovere, no matter what the conjugation. And then last one, dovere, it's your duty. But instead of saying, io devo studiare, I have to study. So, you know what? I should study. Dovrei. Dovrei, dovresti, dovrebbe, dovremmo, dovreste, dovrebbero. Quindi oggi io dovrei studiare. So you just want to be careful about the meaning of these verbs and how you use them at the condition. So we also have the conditional past, which is I would have something. Verb, I would have eaten, I would have studied. So you build it just like the passato prossimo, the present. So you use the present of avere and essere, depending if it's a house verb or not. But in this case, you're going to use the present conditional of avere and essere. It totally makes sense. So avrei, avresti, avrebbe, avremmo, avreste, avrebbero. Sarei, saresti, sarebbe, saremmo, sareste, sarebbero. That list of house verbs is always the same, and the need to agree the past participle remains the same. So the verb with the meaning is going to be here, and it's going to be conjugated are, ato, ere, uto, ire, ito, or any irregular. So two examples: io avrei mangiato la pizza ieri, lei sarebbe arrivata a casa in orario se ... Va bene? So present conditional of avere, present conditional of essere, plus ato, uto, ito, or any irregulars. And that's how you do would have, and then eaten, would have, drunk, would have, studied. Then we have the three crazy verbs. Volere, potere, and dovere. Dovere will become should have. So, avrei dovuto studiare. Potere, could have. Avrei potuto andare in vacanza. Volere, would have liked to. Bene? So, avrei voluto mangiare. So here you have sets of three, because volere, potere, and dovere require an infinitive. You have a helping verb, past participle, and infinitive 3 times. And that's how you make the past conditional of these 3 special verbs. And this is how you make, in general, the past conditional